for all of the candidates to answer. No questions will be taken from the floor. Corey will collect all the questions and present them to me, your moderator, this afternoon. Candidates will be available afterwards for additional individual questions outside of the forum area. Thank you. Now for the instructions to the candidates, and good luck to all of you. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement. We have a timekeeper. Questions from the audience will be fielded by Michelle before the moderator gets to ask the candidates the questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for closing statements. Candidates, do you have any questions about those instructions? Thank you. First, in the office of Region 3 Director, as I call your name, please come forward. We have Rod Carter, Weekend Anchor Reporter, WFLA, Tampa, Florida. Stephen Wright, News Operations Manager, KXAS, NBC5, Dallas, Fort Worth. These are your candidates for Region 3 Director. And gentlemen, as you are asked questions, please speak into the microphone as we are live streaming. All right, since we're waiting for questions, I'll begin. And since we can go in, let's go in alphabetical order. Rod?
Sure.
What do you have to offer for Region 3? What do you think you can do in office that will benefit your association?
Thank you guys so much for being here. First of all, I think that what I can offer Region 3 is what I've offered the Tampa Bay Association of Black Journalists, and I'm the immediate past president there. And also have been vice president of broadcast for Tampa as well as for Birmingham. So the thing that I think that I can offer is an unbridled passion for young people. The one thing that I struggle with within ABJ is to make sure that we take care of students and take care of young professionals who just start in the business. It's very difficult sometimes to afford these conferences when you are literally struggling to make rent and everything else. So the one thing that I will always continue to fight for is making sure that young people have good access to NABJ, good access to the programs. You know, I've in the past sponsored kids right out of my pocket because I want to make sure that they can get here. Now, I ain't rich, so I immediately tell them, if you can get a bed and a way there, I can get your registration. But I think that we can do more things to make that happen.
Okay. Consider that your opening statement. I'm sorry I made some confusion on that.
That's okay.
All right. And now, Stephen.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending. Thank you, NABJ. What I feel like I can bring to Region 3 and the NABJ board is leadership and management experience. I've been a manager for NBC5 and Telemundo 39 for 16 years. I deal with projects, budgets. Don't get into politics and egos. I'm just a person that's get things done, and I work with all kind of people, all kind of attitudes, and deal with all kind of adversity. But at the end of the day, my job is to get things done. I've done that with in our local chapters. I was the president. I served before Cheryl Smith. I'm still active on the board as the immediate past president. I lead an employee resource group at NBC5. It's called the Black Employee Network. I'm also in charge of recruiting, and I think that somebody needs to hold these managers accountable because it's all about getting a job and networking. And when they say that they can't find one, I'm the one that goes out there and finds them. And that's what I think that I can bring to Region 3 and the NABJ board, just leadership, management, no ego, cool, calm, and collected, and somebody that just wants to get things done.
I just wanted to say something real quick in conferring with one of my senior team members. If you would like to share the Facebook Live to your personal profile, you may do that once. So go on and do that if you need to, so people can see who you are. So you can do it on your page or your profile, but only Facebook. Thank you. And that's for everybody, not just friends.
Any Region 3 questions? Okay, Region 3? Okay, we have a question specific to Region 3. And we'll go in alphabetical order. I don't know if you guys are having problems with this mic. I hate that you're
It's just
leaning.
not very far. That's okay. Why don't we just slide down a little bit?
Slide down. That might work better.
Yeah.
You can share the mic a little better
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah,
Great.
there we go.
Okay. All right. The question is for Region 3, what is your plan to keep chapters in Region 3 vibrant?
And
Rod, go first.
okay. You know, it's a good question, and it's actually a big challenge. I know it's very difficult to get people involved in NABJ. I have spent the past 3 years, again, I'm the immediate past president of the Tampa chapter, to get people invited constantly to our Tampa chapter, and it's hit or miss. I'll be perfectly honest with you. You can get some people and some people you can't. So as far as what I have specifically, I can tell you that there will be a concerted effort to make sure that we reach out to get people involved in NABJ, but I think we have to tell them why it's important. We have to tell them why they need to be a part of NABJ and what NABJ can do for them. And then, and this is just my thinking, we have to do something for NABJ members. We really have to be there for them in terms of helping them get jobs, helping them get connected, helping them stay employed. And when there are problems, we have to be there to advocate for those folks when they have issues in their newsrooms.
Stephen?
That is a challenge that we face every day with every chapter nationwide within ABJ, and it's no different. I think on the local level, you need to talk about what is the goal of the chapter. Is it mentoring? Is it about mentoring? And that's fine. Is it about fundraising, getting scholarships? And that's fine if it is. Is it about a social club and networking? And that's fine. Can it be all three? But I just think that on a local level, each chapter needs to decide what they want to focus on and just do that. And what gets frustrating a lot of times when I just see people from Dallas and North Texas, I only see them here. I see them here more than I see them in our own events in Dallas. And it's just a challenge because people are working 24/7, 365. But I would like to reach out to the chapters, communicate, delegate. I'm not a person that thinks I know it all. I will reach back. I will reach ahead. You know, I'll reach back to the people that have already done it, and I'll reach out to the new people who need to do it because we're standing on the shoulders of people who have done it before. But I just think, you know, just trying to focus on mentoring, fundraising, social clubs, constant communication, letting chapters know if they're not in compliance, letting them know what they need to do to get in compliance, and just networking and sharing best practices.
Thank you, Stephen. This is a question, I believe, for all of the candidates, and should you win your office, either of you, I'll begin again in order, alphabetical order, Rod first and then Stephen. As a candidate for NABJ, what is your position on allowing NABJ media-related members the right to vote for all candidates for NABJ Board of Directors and not just for media-related board members?
You sure you want to start alphabetical order? I don't mind if we go the other way. I'm just kidding. You know, that's a tough one. That's a tough question because I know that we have a lot of media partners out there who do great things, and I think the answer may be somewhere between they should and they shouldn't, and I would have to study it more to be perfectly honest with you. I think maybe there's some graduated way that they could have a voice because a lot of those media partners do great things for NABJ, and quite frankly, they're former, you know, journalists who now work in different fields. So I think it's important for those folks to have a voice. If it's a full voice, I'm really not able to say yes to that, but I'm also not able to say no. So I think it's somewhere, I mean, it sounds like a political answer, like I just ran for president of like the country, but I really believe that it's somewhere in the middle. I think that they have a voice, but maybe not a full voice that as a full working journalist would have.
Would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Okay. As a candidate for NABJ, what is your position on allowing NABJ media-related members the right to vote for all candidates for NABJ Board of Directors and not just for media-related board members?
I think they should be able to vote for all of the positions within ABJ. I think if whether you're a public relations person or an education person, you're involved in the organization, you're a journalist, and you should have a right to vote. I mean, a lot of people from my station, a lot of people that I've known, they leave TV, leave print, and they go into the land of PR. But when I'm dealing with them, I'll let them know they're a journalist just like me. So I would allow them the same vote that I have. I think that's important that they vote. They're members just like we are.
All right, gentlemen, the last question for your region, and then I'd like to remind our audience that all candidates will be available outside of this forum following all of the answers and questions. Okay, beginning again with you, Rod. This is a general question for both of you. NABJ convention in Region 3 this year and will return to Region 3 in 2021 in Houston. What do you think needs to be improved to make the convention better?
Well, I think what we need to do is make sure that we have a facility that is easily accessed by everyone. People can get to things. Make sure that, I don't think there's any secret there was a lot of issues with hotels this year, and I think we need to secure something that will put in place that people will have a place to stay. I think the conventions are fantastic. I think what these young people get out of it when they come here, and what those of us who've been around for a little bit longer, as a young man said to me yesterday, he's like, this isn't your first convention, I can tell. I was like, thank you. And it's not. My first convention was several years ago, and I'll tell you real quickly in my minute 30 here. My first interaction with NABJ was after I graduated from college. I was hired for one of the first short courses to shoot video. Between that time and 96, that was 91, 96, I couldn't really attend a convention because I couldn't afford to attend a convention. So my first convention was Nashville in 96. I wish there was something in place between that time to help me. Now, I was working, but I just wasn't making a lot of money. So my improvement plan, it goes back to what I said before. I have a passion for young people in this business, and I really want to help them to take advantage of what we have to offer. So I would find a way to make sure we get as many young people at the convention attending it and having a good time and learning.
All right, thank you. Again, here's the question. NABJ's convention is in Region 3 this year and will return to Region 3 in 2021 in Houston. What do you think needs to be improved to make the convention better?
I like a centralized location. I like it when we're in Detroit or New Orleans, we're all in the same building. I think it needs to be more affordable. We need to think about our college students and then our colleagues that have laid off and they're coming to NABJ, which the number one deal is to get a job and networking. Unless you have a lot of money or you're like me and your company's paying for it, it's a struggle, and the struggle is real. I would also like to see more workshops for journalists in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. We need more producer-driven workshops. We need more workshops for directors. We need more mentoring events. And then we just need to just make sure we're communicating to our corporate partners when we're having seminars, like what days that they are going to be starting, because it seems like the last couple of years NABJ is starting earlier. We know we had workshops yesterday at Wednesday at 8 a.m., which is tough when a lot of your news directors and your decision makers are not here until Thursday or Friday. So I would just try to make it more beneficial and more outgoing. If we're asking people to pay their money, and I know it's not easy, people are using vacation times and savings, I just think that they deserve the convenience of one-stop shopping, great workshops, and affordability. I think that's what NABJ is about.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now each of you will have 1 minute for your closing statement. We'll begin with you, Rod.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I've been a journalist now for going on 29, 30 years. I've been a member of NABJ for many of those years. I couldn't afford to be a member as much as I wanted to early on in my career. But in the past few years, in a leadership role in Tampa and other leadership roles with other chapters throughout the Southeast region, throughout Region 3, quite frankly, this is where I worked my entire career. I've made an effort to make good connections with people and take care of our young people and our young professionals. If you walk around that job fair, you'll probably see 500 kids going, "Hey, Uncle Rod." I have more uncles and kids than I could name, but I'm proud of that. In Tampa, I've also made some really good connections with people at the Poynter Institute, so I'm looking to do some great things in our region that will increase our training and talk about things like mental health for journalists, just increase our visibility across this region. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Stephen?
NABJ has meant a lot to me, and I, unfortunately, at a young age in college, I did not know about NABJ. I didn't get involved in NABJ till I went down to Dallas and went to the first convention in the early 2000s and caught the bug and been mentored by many board of directors who have done so much, and it just means a lot to me. And just with the connections, NABJ coming to the convention is like a family reunion, and it's a family reunion with people that you just keep in touch with year after year after year. You know, I have a tree of people that I've mentored throughout this process that are all over the country, because when these jobs are happening, it's who you know will get you in the door and what you know will get you there and what you know will keep you there. I like NABJ when we were bringing candidates in. I could reach out to my fellow members and they can tell me what this person is about and we can vouch for them. But that's what I like about mentoring and recruiting and connections, and I just think that I bring a lot of leadership experience that I would like to give to the board.
All right, here are your candidates for Region 3. Rod Carter, weekend anchor reporter, WFLA, Tampa, Florida. And Stephen Wright, news operations manager, KXAS, NBC5, Dallas, Fort Worth. Give them both a big round of applause, please.
Great job. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, you guys are the test bunnies with the mic. Okay. Thank you. In the office of Region 1 Director, as I call your name, please come forward. We have Christopher Nelson, coordinating producer, MSNBC, NBC News, New York. A statement will be read on his behalf as he is occupied here at the convention. Tori Parrish, business reporter, Newsday, New York. Welcome, Tori. Thank you. Okay, I'll read Christopher's statement in his absence. Good afternoon, NABJ. My name is Christopher Nelson, and I'm coordinating producer for MSNBC and NBC News and a candidate for Region 1 Director. I would first like to apologize for being unable to be there at the candidates forum this afternoon due to a professional commitment. I am grateful to have a few minutes to have the opportunity to speak of my desire to be elected Region 1 Director. I've been a member of NABJ for 15 years, had some role in leadership for 14 of those years, from being a regional student representative, advocating on behalf of student chapters, to elected student representative to the board of directors, to seed committee co-chair, to communications committee chair. I've also belonged to chapters in every city in which I've lived, studied, and worked, including Baltimore, Washington, and New York. It's because of this involvement that I know that I'm prepared to be an unapologetic advocate for members living and working in Region 1. It's why I'm equipped to be an advisor to chapter leaders and an ally to fellow board members in a meeting that needs all of our members. During my time in office, I pledged to publish regular communications updates for members in Region 1, to organize year-round trainings in alignment with our task force, and push for increased chapter grants for professional chapters to explore bringing a NABJ short course to Region 1, and to hosting 2 successful regional conferences which leverage all of the resources of Region 1. I do hope that you will vote for me. Thank you. Now, Tori, your opening statement.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tori Parrish. I'm a business reporter at Newsday in New York. I'm also a deputy regional director for Region 1. I've been a business reporter, been in journalism for 15 years, been a business reporter for a year and a half. I'm running for a regional director for Region 1 for 2 reasons. One is I'd like to give back to Region 1, which has done a lot for me. I always say my first 2 jobs came from the job fair, from 2 conventions. And I also have experience running a chapter and leading a turnaround of a chapter that was in significant trouble in Pittsburgh. I feel like I can be a resource to chapters as they're going through whatever issues that may come up with fundraising, getting members, building a committee, building programs, all that I have experience with. In 2014, when I was first elected in the Pittsburgh chapter, we were in deep trouble. There was hardly any money. There have been financial improprieties. There was hardly any membership, no programming. And from that, we tied for chapter of the year in 15, and we won in 17. So I feel like I can be a resource to chapters that may be experiencing challenges. As a deputy director, I also was involved in the planning of the regional convention in Hampton, Virginia. We had in April a very successful conference, and I feel like I bring experience and dedication to my position. Thank you.
Tori, thank you. I'll get right to the questions for the region. You'll have 1 minute to answer.
Okay.
What is your vision for moving NABJ forward, and how do you see the process unfolding?
My vision for moving NABJ forward is 4 things I want to focus on. Professional development. I think that should happen monthly at the chapter level, or at the regional level. Also, chapter support, student mentorship, and really growing the Region 1. I also want to work on more member engagement. Someone asked me yesterday at one of the events, what did I think our biggest issue was within NABJ? I think it's member engagement. I think a lot of people come to these conventions every year and have a great time, maybe hit the job fair, but they're not involved on the back end with planning, with committees, with volunteering, and they're not involved in their chapters. And if you don't have fresh people coming in, fresh people to help bringing people into the pipeline, you run the risk of burning out the people who are running things behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you. This question from the audience for all candidates. Are any of you in alliance with any other candidate running for office this year? Do you believe those alliances are healthy for NABJ? Why or why not?
Well, I voted for Marlon Walker. I guess you would say that's an alliance. He endorsed me. I've endorsed him. The question was, do I think it's healthy to have alliances? I think so. If you share concerns with someone, why not support them? Why not help them? I think that's pretty common. And that's a possibility. You might be working with that person in the future. You also run the risk, if one of you isn't elected, that you're working with someone you didn't support. So, it could be a double-edged sword.
That's a good explanation. Okay, so now for your closing statement.
Well, my closing statement is I'm dedicated to Region 1. I'm dedicated to whatever position I hold, whether it was such a chapter president, whether it's in my paid position, whether it's regional deputy director. I bring a lot of fresh ideas and energy to anything I approach. I think Region 1 is a very strong region, 10 chapters, 10 professional chapters, 13 student chapters, and it has a lot 23 student chapters, and it has a lot going for it, and I really want to be a resource to this region.
Okay, give our candidates, plural, a big round of applause for Region 1. Thank you, Tori. And
you.
Of course, you'll be available afterward for additional questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Be careful. You don't want to be responsible. You trip. I know. Okay. In the office of secretary, as I call your name, please come forward. We have Ernest Owen, CEO of Ernest Media Empire, LLC, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Cheryl Smith, editor and publisher of iMessenger Media, Dallas, Texas.
This is a challenge.
Also, just to let you know that they are vetting the questions over here to make sure they're suitable for each of the offices before they get to me, just in case you have any questions about that process. Just to make sure that they might be specific and can cover the region as well as any of the other higher national offices. All right, in the office of secretary, Cheryl Smith, you have an opening statement.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Can I get one? Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here. This is really important. My time is important, and I value all of yours as well. I became a member of NABJ in this state as a student at Florida A&M University, and I've been active over the years. And I can remember a time when I didn't have the money to be a member. And, you know, it's really important as we look at over the years, I think about why am I running? And some of you may ask why, and some of you know of the great work that I do locally, nationally. And then there's some of you in this room who know internationally what I have done with journalism. And so I sit here before you today saying, cast your vote for me because NABJ needs leadership, it needs management experience, it needs a calm, cool head, someone who when someone goes to represent you, whether it's in the classroom, the boardroom, or the streets, you know that they're well prepared and that they are respected because of what they do. And I have a track record for doing, and I can talk a lot about what I've done. Yes, I want to help our young, but you want to know what? I want to keep those of us who are my age and those who are older. And that's why in our chapter, even in Dallas, we said we have one founder. We're going to make sure that we contribute to her getting to this convention every year because it's so important to us. But we also bring students here. Our youngest student we brought from our chapter was in the 8th grade. And guess what? He brought a resume. Didn't have much on it. It was a joke when he handed it to the executive editor of the Dallas Morning News, but that editor remembers him today, almost 20 years later. And so I have a proven track record. I'm running my own business. I have 3 newspapers.
Thank you, Cheryl. Your opening statement, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you all here and online watching this forum. I'm very happy to be running in a race against someone who I admire. Thank you so much for your service, Cheryl. I'm happy to be a candidate for secretary because I believe that right now in this very moment, NABJ needs a change. It's time for a change. And a change in leadership and perspective and ideas, paying homage to the past but looking forward. And that's something that I think, I've been helpful at, having the mentorship of so many past presidents and so many of the founders who have instilled in me the opportunity and told me, step up, step in. And that's something that I've been able to do over the years as a member of NABJ. I have been on the task force, I've served on committees, I have won awards, including Emerging Journalist of the Year in 2017. I've served on a local chapter as the Vice President of Print for the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. And I am at a point in my career where I'm ready to pay it forward. I'm ready to sit in and be a part of the bigger conversations. When I look at the current board of NABJ, it does not reflect the membership right now. When you look at the demographics, we do not see enough cross-generational leadership in this organization. We talk so much about the future, and yet so many of our young people don't have a seat at the table to make those decisions. And when I mean young people, I'm not just talking about students. I'm talking about middle professionals, people like myself who's 27, own my own business as a professional freelancer, and is trying to convince young black journalists that being a successful black journalist is not only about getting a major corporation, but starting your own, building grassroots levels, being community champions and leaders. We have to change the culture of NABJ that often tells our young people and tells other people that our value is in corporate dollars and corporate worth and assets. That the only types of people that can run this organization are people who've been around twice my age. And when we look at the history of NABJ, it's always been cross-generational leadership. Those people who are mentees that become mentors. And that's what I want to do as the next NABJ secretary.
Thank you so much. Now we have our first question from the floor. We'll go back to you, returning the mic to you, Cheryl Smith. Please restate the 3 main focuses of your campaign.
Okay, I would have to say that it goes back to why I said run again and why I was asked to run again. And people say asked all the time, and some of those same founders and past presidents asked me to run because I bring sound leadership to the board. Communication is very key, and when you can meet with people and address their concerns and not tell them what is good for them, but find out what they actually want and need. Communication, we need to diversify our revenue stream because just like with other organizations that I belong to and I'm in a leadership position, when you don't diversify your revenue stream, the only way you get money usually is by taxing your members. And our members have been taxed enough. And then we're dealing with there has been a lot of issues around management and getting our staff together, and that's something where I have come in as a manager and, in fact, negotiated and worked on the exit of our previous executive director. And then I also was flown into the office to handle our company handbook with the staff and work with them because I have the management skills, I have the leadership, I have a calm, cool, and well-prepared demeanor about myself that takes care of business. And that's the same thing that even at my age, gosh, I got called back into my, ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. No, you were just getting warmed up.
Yes.
Me
All
too.
right. All right, Ernest, restate the 3 main focuses of your campaign.
Absolutely. For starters, a pipeline. This organization needs a pipeline of leaders. We need to start grooming people from beginning all the way through. There's all types of levels that leadership should be in this organization, and people should be able to serve advisor roles. People should be able to serve mentorship roles. People should be able to be getting ready to take this organization by the horns. So we need to really invest in the pipeline. When I look at our task forces, we don't fund them. We have a $2.2 million surplus, but there's no money going to task forces for many young and emerging journalists to be able to step up to the plate and understand how to manage a budget on a certain scale. A lot of the leadership experience and training I've gotten has not come from NABJ because of the fact that, quite frankly, this organization does not invest enough in resources to allow people the opportunity to see themselves in those board positions and seats. It took me being on a chapter, it took me being in other boards and organizations across the East Coast to get that experiences. It should happen right here. This should be our home for that. Second is transparency. A lot of things is happening in this organization and people are finding out the last minute, and quite frankly, it pisses me off. We see things about the amendments and we find out about these things the last minute, and everyone's running around like a chicken without a head saying, what happened? How'd that happen? What happens at board meetings? Where minutes are supposed to be taken and given out to members so people can find the minutes to know what these decisions are. People should be able to understand that without finding out the last minute. And lastly, we talk about diversity, not just diversity of revenue, but intersectionality. We need to diversify our membership.
All right. I know you folks are getting warmed up, but please pay attention to the timekeeper because we want to get additional questions in for the candidates who will end up being on the executive board. So, Cheryl,
Yes.
how do you plan on including millennials in leadership positions?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's something that I do already. And there are a number of millennials who love Cheryl Smith because I've been with them since they were young, and I continue to grow people. A millennial came into my office last month and said she didn't know she needed a job. She didn't know about NABJ. She had not had any internships or anything. I said, can you give me 4 days? And she said yes. And fortunately, I was able, in a position at this time, to pay for her to come here. So she can learn about it. I can show her better than I can tell her. But I work with people and across all segments, and that's what I'm about. Because you know what? I remember a time when NABJ was not too kind to me. I was black press. I was from a black college, and it wasn't the end thing. And I stayed, and I stayed, and I stayed. And so I am to these young people what I wish had been there for me.
Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, Ernest, I'll restate the question. How do you plan on including millennials in leadership positions if you're elected?
Well, as a millennial, one thing I'm going to do is not be paternalistic. I think one of the things that we have to do in this organization is start stepping aside and passing the baton. Start opening doors and not just being gatekeepers at them. And I think the culture of this organization is that young people should be embraced in organizations, not talked down to, not told how they got to wait their turn and have to do all of that. We got to get to a point to start opening doors and start seeing talent and embracing them. You know, I've been running for a seat on this board. This is the second time I've ran for a seat on this national board. And I have seen so many people hold these seats for dear life. And we look at a lot of young people in this industry that need to have an opportunity to lead, and how much should they do? I shouldn't have to be 54 or 45 to finally get a seat on this board. So it's going to take members to step up and vote. Vote for what you believe in. You say you want young black men and women to lead in this organization, to step up. We shouldn't have to be. And the only time we shouldn't is not just for handouts, not just for people to give us money. I have my own business. I'm a freelancer. I work to get my money. Sometimes we create GoFundMe accounts, but we do what we got to do. That's not the only transactional work that millennials can do, because we're filling these seats at these conventions. We are used as marketing to get people to come here. Corporations are coming here for people like us. And we have to do more than just benefit from all the resources. We got to step up and serve in different ways. And as a member, I know that my representation on this board would do that.
Okay, each of you, this question is going to come back to all the candidates because it's for all the candidates. Cheryl, beginning with you, are any of you in alliance with any other candidate running for office this year? Do you believe those alliances are healthy for NABJ? Why or why not?
I have not made any alliances because I've seen when alliances have really hurt the organization. I've looked at every individual. There are people that we're a family. I'm not here to fight with anybody or to tear anybody down. I'm here to uplift everyone. So I'm trying to see what is best for NABJ. And I just know that I'm hoping that we've gotten past those petty days when, oh, you didn't vote for me, so you can't serve on any committees, or you become invisible to the organization, because we've dealt with that before. And so I've been busy concentrating on making sure for those who didn't know, who were not aware of the work that I have continued to do for NABJ, I'm trying to get your vote. And then if you ask me about someone, I tell you the good in everybody. You go find the bad, because I don't have time for the bad. You go find the bad, but I will tell you about the good in every candidate.
Sure. Okay, Ernest, I'll repeat the question. Are any of you in an alliance with any other candidate running for office this year? Do you believe those alliances are healthy for NABJ? Why or why not?
I'm in alliance with NABJ. But I will say that I think on the question of alliances, I mean, look, I do think there's an alliance. I think there's an ageist alliance against young people like myself running. They don't want my ass to run. And I think that for the most part, we do see that difference. I think there's a generational alliance. I think there is a reliance based on who's in corporations and what brands and where you're at and where you go. And I think Cheryl and I have that in common with being an entrepreneur and being with Black Press, that in certain ways we do see that, right? And I think that's one of the things I want to break down running in this seat, is that I want to break down that cronyism. You have people who've served on the board for a long time, and that's great. But I've never had a seat at the table on that board. And I think that that's something that needs to change. And I think a lot of us got to say we want change. You can't ask for change from the same people that's been doing it for so many years. When are we going to learn that a lot of what we want has to require new voices, have to require new ideas and perspectives, and we have to get outside of ourselves and outside of our comfort zones to make that happen. So I'm in alliance with NABJ. I'm in alliance with change. I'm in alliance for those things, and I am doing an uphill battle. I won't win because I sometimes keep it real, but guess what? I want you all to see me here, and I want you all not to say that a young person didn't step up to this seat and do this challenge and fight this type of race. It's a tough race, but I'm going to run it, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Thank you. Final question for these potential office holders. As a candidate for NABJ, what is your position on allowing NABJ media-related members the right to vote for all candidates for NABJ Board of Directors and not just for media-related board members? Cheryl, we begin with you.
Okay. We've been jockeying back and forth with this question forever, and I understand we are the National Association of Black Journalists, and I also understand the industry is changing. It's changing rapidly, and so we have these members who are members. You know, taxation without representation, for anyone, especially for Black people, we should understand that it is not good for the organization. So, you know, I go back and forth because I'm a purist, but I was a purist. I come from a time when I thought print was better than broadcast. And so it's something that I weigh back and forth, but making a decision on it, I'm so strong about having representation from those members, and they've been telling me how upset they are, and they would like it, and I would like for them to have a voice. And sometimes it's not just having a seat at the table of 14 or however many are actually on the board. I think right at this point in my life, I'm saying that yes, you can vote for the leadership of this organization because it is so important. It is so important. And then when you look at the percentage of people who actually vote, you know, you have to have a vested interest in something, and we have to make NABJ relevant to all members, or why have that member base?
Thank you. Ernest, the question is, as a candidate for NABJ, what is your position on allowing NABJ media-related members the right to vote for all candidates for NABJ Board of Directors and not just for media-related board members?
Yes, simple. They have as much equity and stake as everybody else. They have to pay dues. They have to do what they got to do. And quite frankly, we know as black journalists and black people in this industry, we are changing seats. What are we implying when we say media-related professionals can't do it? We are, kind of like inferring that, oh, they don't lack the intellectual capital to make that decision or to know what's going on. I don't believe that. I think that they are just as able to make those decisions because we've seen people go into PR, into journalism, back and forth. It's hard out here to keep jobs. I see a lot of my friends keep on doing both, but you know what's consistent is their NABJ membership. And these leaders have to address them all the same. If you're an NABJ president, you're not looking at full members like you are a full journalist. I'm going to treat you this way because you're still getting checks from me related. So you getting that money, everybody's getting that money the same. It's like, how dare you tell them that they are not allowed to vote for a secretary that has to pick up the call for them. So as secretary of NABJ, I want you to know when I'm elected that I'm going to answer media-related calls just like everybody else because you all pay dues just like everybody else, and you might be a journalist to go back in full-time, or your other friend might cross over. But regardless, this organization has made you a member, so they are responsible to serve you. And so I will be serving everybody. So I do think media-related should definitely have the right to vote, and I would advocate for that if I was on the board.
Thank you. And thank you for that smattering of applause. All right, so the Office of Secretary, the candidates will now have a 1-minute closing statement, beginning with you, Cheryl Smith, editor and publisher.
You know, this is a wonderful time in my life, as old as I am. And I love every day. And the interesting thing, I was going to tell you the story, in my sorority, they wanted my old behind to run for office this time. I was actually nominated to run. And it was because of what Cheryl Smith brings to the table. You know, I am the best and the brightest at everything that I do. And I love NABJ. I help people. I don't have time, I do not have time to do things that do not make things better. And that's what I do for NABJ. And I'll just tell you something, that I just hired someone in my office, and she starts next week, and she has to get in. Really?
Yes, 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Cheryl.
Well,
it's
what were our
1 minute.
questions, though? Because
But
I
the good news is that we will be able to talk to our candidates outside of the forum so that you can say, what were you saying, Cheryl?
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
all
It's a
right,
good
so,
one.
all right, so, Ernest, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to be able to talk to you all here on Facebook. Shout out to all my friends in Philadelphia watching. Please vote. And everyone here, and thank you, Cheryl, for being a great candidate and being a fair candidate. I just met Oprah and interviewed her 2 days ago. And one of the best things that happened in that exchange when we gave hugs is that she said, it's your time. She told me that to my face. It's your time. And what I learned from that experience is that in that moment, there was an embrace of understanding where we've been and where we're going. And I feel like in this moment, that's how I see NABJ. We're getting to the next decade. And I want our board to look like that. I want our board to be intersectional. I want our board to be queer, local, entrepreneurial, media-related all day, every day. I want our board to look like the type of organization we serve. And right now, it does not look like that. And I think that's why we're having some of the backup that we're having, because we don't have fierce voices that are unbought there.
All right. Please thank our candidates for secretary. And finally, in the Office of President, as I call your name, well, actually, they're all coming forward right now, but Gregory Lee, Senior Managing Editor, The Athletic, Washington, D.C., Dorothy Tucker, Investigative Reporter, WBBM-TV, Chicago, Illinois, Marlon A. Walker, Reporter, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Atlanta, Georgia. Please welcome our candidates for President. I may end up asking you to, I may.
Crisscross applesauce. I think we'll be fine.
When we get to you, we'll try to pass the mic down there. We'll try to make that work for you so that you're heard online, Marlon. I'm concerned about that. So if there's any issue, we'll figure that out as we get on down the line. Do you have a seat over there?
I do.
Yeah, you have a seat.
I'm trying to figure out how to cross my legs the right way. And
Okay.
We'll make sure we'll make it work. Let me see what's
My phone and my pen. Thank you. Like, don't leave home without it.
Marlon, do you think you'd be more comfortable over here and sharing this mic?
no, I'm great.
Okay, you're thinking that's going to work for you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think, look, this is the slack right here.
The last thing I need is a bigger mouth.
Slack is right here.
Give us just a moment.
Yeah.
Is it going anywhere?
Wait, hold on, give me a second. If you can pull it, can we pull it? Will it allow to pull it? No, it won't allow to pull. How far does it go over? Let's see.
That should be fun. Yeah, that should be fine too.
Move it straight up. Wayne. Yeah.
Nice to see this many people.
Okay. Just reviewing some questions that are specific to the candidates before getting started. And now, Gregory Lee, if you'll begin with your opening statement.
Good afternoon, NABJ. I'm Gregory Lee, a lifetime member and former president of the National Association of Black Journalists. I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your busy convention schedule to listen to the vision of these candidates for NABJ. It's been a busy week for all of us, and it's been a busy week for me too. And I just got back from Miami looking at reviewing and the final plans for the Sports Task Force Scholarship Jam, which has been a labor of love for me, where we raised thousands of dollars over the years for student journalists. And this is our 14th event. And it's a labor of love for me because I'm always fighting for their future. And I'm in this fight to be president of this organization once again because I believe in fighting for our young people. I believe in fighting for our mid-career journalists. I wanted to make sure that they're still living their best journalism life by providing the training and tools needed to continue to succeed in this industry. And I want to make sure that this organization keeps going and thriving for the next 45 years. I love NABJ. I want to continue the momentum of the last 4 years under the Gulf administration, where the organization has really thrived financially. As finance chair for the past 4 years, I've been part of the team, the board, including my two opponents, have done a great job of providing the financial roadmap to where we are today and thriving as a great organization that we are. I'm looking forward to this discussion with my opponents and you, the membership, because our future is at stake, but we have a very, very bright future. Thank you.
Dorothy Tucker.
Thank you. First of all, let me say thank you for coming here today. You could have been at the job fair, you could have been at a workshop, but you chose to give us your time, and I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank the 28 chapters that I spoke to via Skype or called in or personally visited. Thank you for allowing me to disrupt your chapter meetings. And I apologize for bugging the hell out of you because I know I did. And I also want to tell those who I didn't get to, trust me, I tried. But again, thank all of you for joining us today. So why do I want to be president of NABJ? It's because I'm ready. I've spent the last 4 years taking notes. I've paid attention to everything. The programming, the finances, especially the finances. I know what works. I know what we need to fix. I know that we need to figure out how to make this convention, all of our conventions, more affordable. So what makes me different? What makes me stand out? I've created a tangible tool for NABJ that can have an impact on this organization for a long time. I created the producer database. That is a directory that helps all of our members get jobs. It has only been on the website for 8 weeks, but in that short time, there is a print reporter who is now being courted by CBS Digital. There is a podcast producer who is just about to get a job at the Wall Street Journal. There are 2 TV producers who are going from a smaller market to a larger market. That's just the last 8 weeks. Imagine what the future will hold. Imagine a directory for all disciplines. I want to create a bright future for NABJ.
Thank you, Dorothy. Marlon Walker.
This is going to be fun.
Now I'm going to ask you again, would you like to relocate?
No. I should be fine. I think everybody can hear me.
It's not just that, it's about the streaming.
Wait, is there a mic? Well, no, there's a mic for them too, right?
This is it.
Right.
Marlon, stop directing. Do you want to move, or are you good there?
I am perfect, Madam President.
Okay, good, thank you.
I've been watching the legacy that I've started over the last 4 years come together this week. In my suite right now, there is a group of journalists having conversations led by the freelance task force that I started in 2017 amid the advocacy work for Ebony O's and making sure that our members and non-members and coming members who are now members were getting paid by an organization that we all so love. I've also watched as people walked up to me when I was coming into the job fair who were part of my basics boot camp that I started in 2017 and hugging on me and telling me how proud they were to be here and telling me about the new job that they just got and realizing that this little engine that I started, thinking about 3 years ago after conversations with college students and their professors has influenced, and helped people find jobs and internships, more than 150 of the attendees over the 2 iterations. That's the biggest success rate of any NABJ program. When you do targeted training and networking, it works for our members. It's nice to see that, what I want to do as president has already been laid as a groundwork through the work that I've been doing over the last 4 years. I think we need better training. I've talked about that over the last 4 months. I think we need a better opportunity to train people at these conventions. It's beautiful to see. And I'm grateful for all of you in this room because it means that people care about this process. And I'm glad it's almost over because I'm ready to get back to work.
Okay, those are the opening statements for your candidates for president of NABJ, and now we're getting to your questions. This question is for each of you, this one question. Some of them may be more specific to you as individuals, but this one you can all answer. What would you do differently to increase NABJ attention to coverage to issues related to Africa and the diaspora? Beginning with you, Greg.
First, as an organization, we need to work with our World Affairs Task Force. We need to really, really incorporate our task forces. As you know, over the last 20 years, I've been working diligently with the Sports Task Force. I created the Young Black Journalists task force. But more specifically, in terms of this space, I think we have to also do a better job of grooming and training students, and exposing young people to the benefits of covering international journalism. Too often, I've gone through a lot of applications and a lot of students, and a lot of students don't really know about covering the world. They worry about covering what's in their face. And for us to, in order to get that increased attention, we have to provide that pool for news organizations so they can see that we care about those issues. But as an organization and as a leader, would be a leader of this organization, first and foremost, I'm working with the World Affairs Task Force to make sure that we are the lead in terms of increasing that coverage.
Dorothy Tucker.
Repeat the question, please.
What would you do differently to increase NABJ's attention to coverage to issues related to Africa and the diaspora?
I think that it is important that we do a couple things. I think we should direct the office to make sure that we are more aware of what's going on in the world, and that we take the opportunity to send out releases and respond to things publicly that are happening. I think we should also rely more on our global task force. I know John Yearwood has done a fabulous job, and that is something that I would like to see us figure out how we can grow that task force. I think we need to do a better job of introducing our members to the various opportunities to work internationally and to report internationally, and I think that will also expand our coverage.
Marlon Walker.
Thank you. I think it's through advocacy and awareness and training. It's just like there's a panel Saturday morning at a godforsaken hour about making more than $100,000 before you turn 35. It's one of the few panels that we have on about business reporting. But if you're doing training that's very specific and targeted to certain people, you're going to make them excited. You're going to give them an opportunity to learn something that they didn't know. A lot of people may not cover certain things because it hasn't been put on their platform or their plate. If we're giving people that information up front, then we're going to do a better job of helping them get there and filling that gap.
Thank you. And this next question, beginning with Greg Lee, is for all of the candidates. Can we move the mic, please?
Oh, sorry.
NABJ's governance structure hasn't changed much since its founding. How would you overhaul NABJ's governing management structure?
Well, we've changed the Constitution a couple of years ago. We are voting once again as an organization to cut back some more board seats. I think that we have to do develop a deeper study into looking how we organize our leadership structure. I'm a big believer of having standards, especially for the executive board, to have management experience, given that there's a lot of things as an executive board in terms of personnel, in terms of finance, and in terms of overall vision to lead an organization. And I really, very, very strongly believe in having previous management experience on the executive board. And I can attest to that because when I first got on the executive board as a 25-year-old, as a secretary, there were some things I didn't experience because I was never a manager. And I wish I would have had some of those tools back in that time in 1999 when I decided to run for national office to have that management experience. I didn't have it. And I think that we have to have increased criteria to be on board of directors to make sure that we have the best and the brightest but the most prepared bunch of journalists and leaders to carry our association forward.
Dorothy Tucker.
I think we have seen some changes in the board. I mean, I remember when I was regional director, I think there were 17 or 18 people, members on the board, and then we got that down to 13, and now we're talking about reducing it even more. To the point of just the governance and kind of managing the board, I think that the majority of our past presidents and the people on the board have not been managers, but they've been leaders, because I think it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a good leader just because you are a manager. I think it's important for you to have the kind of leadership skills in order to run a newsroom, or in order to rather to even work in a newsroom, in order to be on the board. And I think if you look at my background, you know, I have been a leader in every chapter that I've been in. I am a leader in the current chapter. As an investigative reporter, I have to manage our team of producers and photographers who work in the unit, and I have management skills that are called working mom skills, managing a household, raising 3 children, and juggling and balancing a career and family. So it's about leadership, and I think that this is an organization that, because we are very smart journalists, we are leaders, and we can be leaders.
Marlon Walker. NABJ's governance structure hasn't changed much since its founding. How would you overhaul NABJ's governing management structure?
In the first 90 days, I have a plan to bring in an outside vendor with the support from the board to take a look at our governance model and tell us what we do well, what we could do better. I think it's been said a few times about us being an organization of journalists, and sometimes you need an expert from the outside to tell you what's important in the grand scheme of running this organization. I think we know a lot, but we might need a little bit of help with that, and it's shown over the years. From there, I think it's taking a group of our own members and using the tools from this outside vendor to reconfigure our organization and looking at the structure, and hopefully that process would help us with the jobs of the people in the national office, as well as the people on the board, as well as our committee chairs and our task force chairs and our different leaders. We've got so many leaders in this organization who are ready and willing and capable of doing great work, but we need a reset right now to really tell us, you know, how we should start doing that work, and it'll make us more effective.
Thank you, Marlon. And now another question, beginning with Greg Lee, for all 3 of you to respond to. Mr. Lee, how would you protect and defend NABJ and its membership against political attacks, specifically from Donald Trump?
First and foremost, we are journalists. We must focus on that and remain focused on that. We should not be distracted by what any politician says. That's number one. But secondly, as journalists, we should remain and committed to telling the truth, no matter who the politician is, to maintain that credibility throughout this industry. That's point blank. We should not be distracted, but we should fight to make sure our stories are being told and portrayed accurately. So there's no distracting from that. There's no plan of attack to target a particular politician. Our goal, our job as journalists, is to tell the story and tell the truth. That's what matters.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Dorothy Tucker.
You know, I'll tell you, when I saw the release that founder Dwayne Wickham put out when President Trump attacked the city of Baltimore and once again, you know, attacked the black community, I was proud, and I was very impressed with what he wrote. That is the sort of thing that I want us to continue to do. When there is an attack on our organization, on black people, on black journalists, on our industry, you know, I think we need to call on those who have a way of crafting a message. And we are fortunate to have people like Founder Wickham and others who know how to do that. We are able to send a message and respond in an adequate way, and I look forward to that.
Marlon, how would you protect and defend NABJ and its membership against political attacks, specifically from Donald Trump?
I think we've moved and we've been active in terms of vocalizing our thoughts over the last few years and on several occasions when it came to words coming from the big office in the White House. I think we as an organization need to be a little bit more proactive in making our members understand where we feel, this country is with the relationship with the media, and sort of vocalizing that stance. I know a lot of board members currently take to their own social media pages to display their individual opinions when we don't move fast enough as an organization, and I believe that needs to continue as well.
All right, thank you, Marlon. All right, now we have some questions that are specific to individual candidates who are running for president of NABJ. So this is not a generic question. It will be geared specifically toward each individual candidate, beginning with Greg Lee. Mr. Lee, you're asking for a second term as NABJ president. What accomplishments during your first term are evidence that you would take us to new levels in the second term? Please be specific.
First of all, my biggest accomplishment was managing our organization to get through planning a convention in 9 months when we decided to leave the Unity Journalists of Color Coalition. And we had a very successful convention within 9 months, planning it and conducting it in my hometown of New Orleans. We did a lot of things like bringing back the community service aspect of our organization, where we rebuilt homes in New Orleans a few years after Katrina wiped away my hometown. So I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment, and that community activism in my hometown carried over through the next few years for our organization. Secondly, bringing together task forces, not only just building up the sports task force, but helping out. At that time, the Arts and Entertainment Task Force were really starting to build and its group, and they asked for our assistance to help them grow and develop, and look at them today as a growing task force 6 or 7 years later, bringing additional revenue to our organization. So I'm very proud of the time that I was president, and I know that I can be president once and again because I was asked to carry and continue to lead for this organization. For example, last year when we were getting hired from a company that I work for now. They were hiring nothing but white. There was 130 people that were hired, only 4% were black. I put out the survey on Twitter, and guess what they called? They called NABJ, they called members, they hired many, many members, include myself.
Time. All right, Dorothy Tucker. In your current role as VP Broadcast, you only began discussing webinars in the last few months. Why did you not push for this type of programming earlier?
That's not true. You can go to nabj.org, and you can go back to 2017, which was a couple of years ago. I've probably hosted about a dozen webinars, and if you go to nabj.org, you will see that the majority of them, the vast majority of them, I've either hosted or produced. I think the first webinar I did was with Vice, because I made a point of reaching out to Vice. So I did a webinar saying, Vice, what kind of jobs do you have and why? Then I did a webinar with NBC, again, talking about jobs. I interviewed Kim Godwin with CBS and talking about just what does it take to get to CBS. That was a couple of years ago, and look at the dates. I also, probably in the last 6 months, I did a webinar on writing under a deadline. I did a webinar about taxes. People asked questions about the Black News Network, and I went out and I reached out to Gary Wardlaw and I said, hey, let's do a webinar, because I think that is a way for us to have year-round training. That was my answer to if you were at the convention and you found out that you couldn't attend everything, then I said, let's bring Ron Nixon on and talk about investigative tips for journalists just in case you missed that workshop. I've been doing webinars all along, and if that is the one thing that I want to do more of. So as president, you will see twice as many webinars.
Time.
Thank you.
Time. Marlon, this is the question. You have said that you are the most qualified candidate for president this year, yet you are not active locally. What are your accomplishments as VP Print that make you qualified to become president? Please be specific.
you can look at the Basics Boot Camp that I started in 2017 that goes to not the cities that we would go to for national conventions. The last one was held this year in Raleigh, North Carolina. We had about 150 people there. And for me, it's bringing our programming to people in a way that makes it more affordable. That hotel was less than $100 a night. That registration was $15 and $25. And again, with those 150 people, we had 70 folks who in the first 90 days got internships and jobs and freelance opportunities out of that. Also the advocacy that turned into programming, and just so much that I've done in the last few years. You look at the freelance task force and how that's flourished because it came out of advocacy. And like I said, in my suite right now, you've got a panel on opportunities to make yourself a better independent contractor.
Thank you, Marlon. I just want to tell the audience, those of you who are here, that we're not going to be able to get to all of your questions. We apologize about that. We're trying to get to as many as we can, specifically for the Office of President. With that, we turn the first question again to Greg Lee. This question is not specific, but for all of the candidates running for president of NABJ. How do you plan on boosting the marketing and communications for NABJ?
First of all, we have to be, I'm the type of person who wants to know information ahead of time. So I'm very conscious about people's time. If people members have watched me over the years, how I market the Sports Task Force on social media and how we have grown over the years in terms of exposure for our organization to the point now this year we have 14 workshops at this convention because of all the things that we do to communicate with our membership, because of all the things that we do to market to our membership and to the industry. We have to do a better job and be more nimble as an organization in terms of communication, and we need to take a better advantage of all the technologies that are available to us, such as we should invest in Zoom when we have webinars or workshops or whatever, and give our members the time, enough time to prepare for that, because we all have busy schedules. And I know for one personally, I have a busy schedule given what I do. So I respect my members' time. So to give them that time and effort to participate in anything that we do, but we have to do a little bit more, a better job of being more nimble, being quicker, but also being respectful of our members' time.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Dorothy Tucker, do you need the question reread?
I don't. Thank you. I think it's important for us to almost do a whole new branding, because what concerns me is that too many of our managers don't understand the importance of NABJ. So I want to make sure that, for example, when we have our conventions, I want us to promote on social media. I want us to send press releases out about how we are doing workshops that talk about the latest technology, that we're doing an innovation bubble. I want to put out the information that we're doing something on finding data in the story. I want the world to know so that our managers will say, hey, you know, I need you to go to that convention, because they know that we're going to learn something and we're going to bring it back to the newsroom, i.e., I want them to pay for it like they used to. I also want the world to know, I want them to look to us when it comes to information about Black journalists. I want to do a media report card. So I want to grade the media companies when it comes to retention, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to promotion, so that they'll be ranked, and let's say that they will compete with each other. I want everybody to try and get to the top, you know, and I want them to be upset if they're at the bottom so that they can do better, so that we can collect that data and we can use that data in our fight for diversity. And I want to know more about our Black journalists. You probably just got a survey that said job satisfaction survey. Everybody got it, take it. I created that survey so I could learn more about you.
Okay, Marlon?
Could you please repeat?
Sure.
Thank you.
How do you plan on boosting the marketing and communications for NABJ?
Ironically, after the direct question, through the local chapters. And I do want to add to that last answer that while I'm not active, meaning I don't go to all the meetings because I have tennis matches that go on that are sanctioned, I'm financially active in 6 of our local chapters, and I talk to a lot of our local chapter leaders all the time. I think for me, it's a matter of making sure that they have that touch point with us that is giving them the tools and the support to do more locally. By doing more locally in the individual chapters, you're going to raise awareness about this organization, and you're going to raise the number of people who are, 1, active, and 2, invested.
All right, thank you, Marlon. Beginning with you, Mr. Lee, and this question will be for all of our candidates. Other professional journalist organizations have placed more of an emphasis on professional development as they have teamed with Poynter, etc. NABJ is still offering panels on how to land your dream job. How do we start offering more sophisticated programming to help our members excel when they go back to work?
NABJ has to, increase its training in terms of the offerings. We need to be more real time. If you go to an NABJ convention over a number of years, we've seen the same workshops: the Art of the Life shop, get your first job, X, Y, and Z. And we have to be more real time, and be more real time, meaning that wherever issues is going on now, we have to implement those programs. But again, we need to also partner with other groups, because I watch ONA, and they've grown so much in the last 7, 8 years that they have a very, very large membership because their programs are very specific and targeted, and we have to do a better job to prepare our members. And I'm glad that this last board of directors decided to expose some of our members on the Silicon Valley tour track, because we are not in that space. And in the Silicon Valley, blacks are not there. And we have to do a better job to increase our visibility in Silicon Valley, because that's where the growth is. I work for a venture capitalist company, and I know not a lot of you are familiar with The Athletic, but we get money basically from investments from venture capitalists, and that is where the industry is going, and we need to prepare our members for that space, because that's where the money is coming in, but we need to be in front of those faces in Silicon Valley, and we need to prepare our members for the digital revolution that is going and ongoing and continue to go, and so we need to be going with them.
Dorothy Tucker. Other professional journalist organizations have placed more of an emphasis on professional development as they have teamed with Poynter, etc. NABJ is still offering panels on how to land your dream job. How do we start offering more sophisticated programming to help members when they go back to work?
2 things I think we should do. Number 1, we should collaborate more with other organizations like ONA, like JAWS, like NPPA, like SPJ. I want to see a collaboration that happens outside of the convention, in January, in March or something. I want to see regional collaborations so that we can have workshops in programs at those events, so we can have networking events so that our members can learn from them. At the conventions, I want to see satellites. I want NAB to come in here, and I want them to have something in Tower 2 that is strictly for news managers. They have a program that exists already, how to give more tools and how to grow more managers, for middle managers to become upper managers. They have something like that. I want them to come to NABJ and have a satellite conference right with us so our managers can get those tools right then and there. I want to see the Professional Photographers Association. I want them to come in here, and I want them to be over in Tower C, so that all the photographers, the print and digital photographers and video photographers, that they can have a training over there, that we can talk about lighting and we can talk about sound, and so those who really want to have that kind of training, they can have it there as well.
Marlon?
Thank you.
Do you remember the question? Do you need to reread?
I do, Madam President.
Thank you.
In the last 8 or 9 months, I've began having conversations with people to find funding to retool our Media Institute program. We're talking about Poynter and ONA and all these other people, but I think it's about putting our best talent forward and training people in-house and doing 6 to 8 intensive trainings during the year where we certify our members on covering race and covering sexual assault and sexual violence and leadership management. We just ended a partnership with Pointer recently, and I believe we should bring that in-house. We've got so much talent in this room alone who could teach our members on what they do specifically that I believe we should retool our media institutes to really get a grasp on how to make people more marketable for the dream job that they want, not just that first job. I also think that we can do a better job with the convention itself. We've talked about tracks over the years for different developments specifically, but I think we really need to just grab hold and finally do it. If we do tracks where you come in and you say, I want to do digital all week, and you find the specific digital needs that you want, and also training the people who are doing our sessions. Because if you're just throwing 3 or 4 people at the front and putting a mic between them, how much training are you going to get from that?
Thank you, Marlon. I'm going to ask our candidates, we have 2 last questions, so brevity would be good so we can fit these 2 in. Beginning with you, Greg Lee, and then down the line, these last 2 questions are going to be for all of you. For all 3 candidates of president, begins the question. Will you as president meet with CNN executives without Roland Martin? Please explain why or why not.
Well,
it's a good question. I know that the organization, after its recent talks with CNN and the board of directors, they didn't want to meet without its board member, Roland Martin, and we should not be told who we can and cannot bring to any meeting, especially if you want our executive board. We would discuss, if president, with Roland Martin, this and in private, and let him and ask him. Look, we all know we love Roland's our member. He's our executive board member. He's uncontested for vice president of digital. He's not going away. And I know that a lot of people, however they feel about Roland Martin, it's not about Roland Martin. It's about the position that he holds. That's NBJ vice president of digital. So it would rather be Roland Martin, Gregory Lee, Marlon Walker. It's the position. And they have people. Our corporations have to respect our board structure. Our members voted for this member. We must support our membership regardless of the person's name.
Dorothy Tucker.
I agree with Greg. It is totally about the VP of digital, VP of broadcast, whoever it is. We cannot afford to set precedent that way, because next time it could be Dorothy Tucker they don't want to meet with. It could be Marlon Walker they don't want to meet with. And we just should not allow that to happen. This is our organization, and we should set those rules that, if this is who we decide is going to be those people in that position, then that's who it should be. And I don't think we should allow a media organization to dictate that.
Marlon.
This is a unique situation that we find ourselves in when it comes to CNN and Roland Martin, because there's bad blood there. We've all read about it. We've all seen it. We've heard it. It's a Roland question. It's not a national board question. And I've talked to people at CNN, and a lot of them want this meeting to go forward without him. I want him to make this decision for us and not as a board. I want us to get an answer from Roland Martin about whether he would, if he thinks it's for the sake of us to possibly step back and let that meeting go on without him. At this point, as a member of the executive board, we've decided that this meeting won't go on should he not be in that room. But there are a lot of variables at play that dictate, next steps. And that's not a conversation I've had with him directly. We've had it as a board. But that's the first question for me that needs to be answered. What does Roland think about Roland being in that meeting? I know he wants to be there, but why?
All right, thank you, candidates. Let's return the mic to Greg Lee. Unfortunately, because of our time issue, we are going to make this our candidates' closing statement.
Okay.
Candidates, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
NABJ family, thank you for this robust discussion about NABJ's future. The next 2 years of our organization hinges on your decision to select NABJ's next president. A question you should consider is, should we select the next person in line to hold office, or for the person who's best equipped to serve our membership from day one? I'm the one candidate who has the tools to carry out our organization's mission effectively. I know how to run this expanding business we call NABJ, from running student programs to revamping chapters and task forces to keeping a close eye on its finances. I have the ties that not only connect programming, but more importantly, the people of NABJ. I'm a proven advocate who daily promotes the advancement of our members, and I'm constantly contacted by executives from around the country about opportunities for our members and also for positions that they have open. I hope that you choose to support me to once again serve as your president. God bless, and go NABJ.
Dorothy Tucker.
I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to be your VP of Broadcast for the last 4 years. It was an incredible run. It has been a rewarding experience. I think I came in here in 2015 and I made a lot of promises. And I am proud of what I've done because I think it's clear that I've kept my promises. I've heard many of you say that, I've run a hell of a campaign this time, and that is because that is who I am. I work hard. I pour everything into anything that I do, anything. I've reached out to everybody I can. I've been on this. That's who I am. So that's what you will get as a president if you will give me the honor of your vote.
Thank you. Marlon Walker.
I want to thank you all for being here. I think I said it at the beginning where I said it means a lot to me after all the weeks of lost sleep and hard work that so many people are in this room right now. I've been to LA, I've been to San Diego, I've been on the phone with Phoenix, I've talked to people in Seattle, I've been all up and down the East Coast. We've all participated in candidates forums. I've missed a few for crises at home in Detroit. For whatever reason, this is a long process, but at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it. I still want to tell you about Autumn Porter, somebody I met in 2017 in Birmingham, Alabama at the First Basics Boot Camp, who had a resume that was very light, and I remember Bené Wilson ripping it up for her, and she walked out of that situation wondering what was next, but a little more confident than she did going in.
First of all, I would like to. Did you call time? Okay, great.
She got a job.
Okay, great. First of all, we all know that the National Association of Black Journalists is a volunteer organization, and it does not come with a salary. And all of you who volunteer knows that it is a lot of hard work that is in front of the next president of NABJ. With that in mind, knowing that they will be working not only for themselves, but for this association, please give a big round of applause for our candidates for president of NABJ. Now I'd like to thank you everyone, and a reminder, and this is an important reminder, all eligible voters are able to vote in the registration area during normal operating hours and online 24 hours a day. The polls will close at 5 p.m. Friday, August 9th, and the results will be announced in this room beginning at 6 p.m. Thanks for the company. Oh, yeah. Marlon.
Thank you.